So I got out of Star Wars The Last Jedi, and what a surprise, I didn't like it. Uh, it's pretty much confirmed that Disney acquiring the rights to Star Wars was pretty bad for Star Wars fans. I mean, even considering the prequels with George Lucas, Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones were pretty bad, but it got better with Revenge of the Sith. I actually liked that movie. Um, I did like The Force Awakens for the most part, really because it was so much, I don't want to say rip-off of A New Hope, but they took so much of the plot from A New Hope that they really couldn't do anything to make me hate that movie because it was so similar. This movie, however, was just bad on every level. I know some people said they really loved it, and I know some people said they really hated it, and yeah, I'm in the hated camp. There was nothing salvageable about this movie, in my opinion. Big time spoilers in this video, so if you haven't seen it, if you haven't seen the movie, don't watch this video anymore. Anyway, the plot is really one of the big problems with this movie. Basically, in the sense that everything that happened leads to nothing. There's no advancement of the plot in really any way. Yeah, Rey gets to discover some more Force powers, and she gets a little more powerful. There's the confrontation with Snoke, and yeah, some minor characters and extras die. At the end, yeah, Luke dies at the end, but I mean, because they have Force ghosts in this universe, I really think in the sequel they're just going to bring him back. So yeah, I feel like everything that happens really, it feels just like a side story that had no significance to the overall Star Wars plot. So it was hard to get invested in any of the characters. So at the end of it all, I feel like, wow, none of this matters. Why do I care about any of this? You know? Really, the plot, like, three things happen. In the beginning, the rebels attack the Empire. A bunch of them die, but they manage to destroy one of their big ships. And then they try to get away, but then the Empire is able to somehow track them through hyperspace. One of the girls finds out that, you know, they have something on their ship, the Dreadnought, which gives them that tracking ability. So then the next part of the movie is, okay, how do we sneak onto the Empire's ship without them seeing us and disable their tracker? And then a bunch of stuff happens to try to get on there. And then the last part of it is, you know, the last part of the movie is, of course, the Empire finds them again and tries to kill a bunch of them all, and they end up escaping. And we're pretty much at the end of the movie exactly where we left off. There's fewer rebels to take on the Empire. The Empire took some losses, but is ultimately still way more powerful than them. And what do we get? Nothing. There were some good things about the movie. I did like seeing Yoda appear again as a Force ghost, and you know, he retained some of his personality that he did in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Basically, the Yoda we know from the scenes on Dagobah, where he's, you know, more of a jokester and he's like constantly laughing. He's not really like the serious acrobatic Yoda that we know from the prequels. So it was nice to see him. Of course, it was good to see Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker. Luke's personality and just his whole character in this movie is so different from what we know in the original trilogy. And, you know, different isn't always bad, but it was just kind of weird seeing him in this movie as like this just miserable old man who just wanted to be left alone to die, and it didn't really feel like Luke. At the end of it, you know, he sacrifices himself and dies at the end of the movie. And yeah, because there are Force ghosts in this universe, it's not really going to matter, I think. I'm sure Disney's just going to sign him up for the sequel, and we'll see him as a Force ghost. Or they'll retcon it, and it'll turn out he didn't die at the end of the movie at all. So really, the only thing that could possibly have significance to the plot doesn't have that much significance anyways. So yeah, aside from seeing Yoda and Mark Hamill, I didn't really like much else. Well, okay, that's kind of a lie. I did like Andy Serkis as Snoke, but even then, so I could forgive the plot really having no point if I enjoyed the characters, but this is where Disney Star Wars really loses me. I really don't like the casting at all. You know, I'm sure a lot of these people are really good actors in their own right, and I'd enjoy them in other things, but they just don't... I don't know if I want to say they don't fit in the Star Wars universe, but, you know, they've just got... They're not as likable as the cast from, you know, the original trilogy, and I found myself caring more for the cast in the prequels. They just seem to fit Star Wars better. When I watch these guys on screen, I feel like I'm watching a different series outside of Star Wars, and then Star Wars characters that we know, like C-3PO and R2 and Chewbacca, are just like making cameos. It doesn't feel Star Wars. None of the characters really seem to have their own discernible personality. It seems like everyone's character is, you know, to be really serious about what's going on, like, oh, things are blowing up, oh my god, we need help here, and then out of nowhere they'll say some kind of one-liner to try and get the audience to laugh. There's so many one-liners in this movie, it gets irritating. Like, every other line or every other scene, it's like someone makes a wisecrack, or they try to insert this silly banter to get a laugh from the audience, but it feels really out of place. It's like, oh, you got people dying left and right here, and then someone's gonna make a joke, like call someone else Chrome Dome as an insult, or you know, just have a spat between the officers, and it's just like, this kind of takes me out of the mood here. Yeah, like the main character, Rey, I'm not really following her as the main character. I don't get invested in her struggles because she doesn't really have a personality. Like, okay, she's got a British accent, and okay, I guess her parents, you know, she's trying to find her parents. She's really good at the Force. For whatever reason, she's just naturally gifted. And yeah, there's really, Rey's character just seems to boil down to she's serious 90% of the time, and then it's her like staring into the distance with a serious expression, and then the camera gets close on her, or just focuses on her staring, and then we cut to something else. There's... what else can I say about her, really? Kylo's the same angsty self like he was in The Force Awakens, but maybe it's just me. I know a lot of people like Kylo, but I can't look at Adam Driver's face without thinking of JP from Grandma's Boy.
Take care, JP.
Please sit on my face.
That was not appropriate.
Oh my god. See, like, after seeing Grandma's Boy, whenever I see Adam Driver, I just keep thinking that to myself, and that just, personally, it takes me out of the movie, which isn't going to be the case for everyone else. I guess Kylo's a sympathetic character. He's not too bad, but he doesn't really have the same presence, I would say, as I would hope your main villain in a movie has. I feel like, he's kind of like a punk kid who I feel a little sympathetic for. There's really no sense of, damn, this guy is, like, intimidating, like I had with Darth Vader. There's none of that. Same with Snoke. I mean, he was pretty spooky in The Force Awakens because, you know, he had that, you know, I guess he had that holographic image where he was, like, all smoky and, like, distorted, and he was, like, all giant, so you're like, whoa, who's this guy? But then when you see him in person, it's like, he's got this gold robe on, and, you know, his face is all disfigured. He's kind of cool, I guess. He's a little too jokey for my taste. I mean, Andy Serkis plays him well. Andy Serkis is always enjoyable, but he doesn't have that really intimidating and just evil presence like Emperor Palpatine did in the trilogy and the prequels. He's definitely no Palpatine. The way he dies, too, you know, unless they retcon it later, the way he dies, too, is pretty underwhelming, I would say. You know, of course, Kylo betrays him by killing him with the lightsaber. It was kind of predictable because they have the whole Sith rule of 2. And, you know, you always figured that Kylo was going to betray him anyways because Snoke was an asshole to him. And, you know, he had already killed Han Solo in The Force Awakens, so why wouldn't he kill his master, you know? But yeah, Snoke ended up not being all that great. We get to see Captain Phasma again, and this time she actually fights someone instead of getting knocked out right away, but she still gets her ass kicked in pretty quick time, so despite how much they try and make her a badass, you know, at this point she's like Team Rocket. She has a good entrance, gets her ass kicked, and disappears. It's like, okay. It's not clear if she died or not in this. She falls into a pit of fire. But we see her eye at the end of it, which makes me think they're probably going to do some kind of reveal of who she is in a sequel. Yeah, who else do we get for characters? We get the stuttering thief. I think his name is... he was okay. He didn't really have that much of a personality, except he's like a code breaker, and he has a stutter. Like, not much outside of him. He betrays the main characters, of course. Like, we didn't see that coming. We get this other lady, Vice Admiral Holdo, who takes Leia's place as being in charge after Leia gets injured, and she seems so out of place in the movie. Maybe it's because, like, her voice, or I don't know what, but it's like she just didn't fit. I mean, if you see the movie, I think you'll get what I'm talking about. She just feels like an out-of-place person in the Star Wars universe. The only thing that made her unique was giving her purple hair, but it's like, it feels like that was a last-minute decision by the crew. It's like, wow, there's really nothing that makes this girl stand out in any way except her being a total bitch. How could we make her fit better into the Star Wars universe? I know, let's dye her hair purple. Let's get this purple dye from Hot Topic and just dump it all over her head. Like, you know, and yeah, she makes a sacrifice and saves everybody at the end by doing a hyperspace through a ship that blows it up. But she's such a bitch for, like, all of her screen time that by the time she does sacrifice herself, I'm like, okay, good, she's dead, thank you. Yeah, General Hux is in this again, and Hux is like the stupidest character added to Star Wars. I don't know who thought it'd be good to introduce some, like, smarmy British character into the Empire in these movies. Like, yeah, they had the British officers in the original trilogy, but this guy just feels like a stereotype when you look at him. And when you hear him speak, oh, these rebels, you know, they'll have no chance against us, the Empire. I am General Hux, your lord and master. Obey me or be destroyed. Pish posh, pish posh. Like, I can't... Can someone just kill off that character already, please? Speaking of characters that can be killed, can we get rid of Finn already? Finn is just... I got kind of annoyed with him because, you know, in The Force Awakens, he was like the one character where I was like, oh my god, he's like Jar Jar light. You know, he wasn't as bad as Jar Jar in terms of like the one-liners and jokes, but that seems to be his whole purpose in the series going forward, is doing the one-liners and shouting like, damn! It's another person who doesn't really have a personality outside of, you know, shouting things that the audience can already see for themselves. His whole subplot could have just been done away with. We're introduced to this new character, Rose, who, you know, initially is all like a fangirl over him because he's a hero or something. There's a misunderstanding first, like she sees him deserting and, you know, initially tries to arrest him, but then she figures out about the tracker thing, and then they come up with that plot to disable the tracker. So they go on their own adventure. And I guess there's this whole backstory with her where she used to be a slave on this casino planet. I ended up not really caring about her either. Number one, because she talked so fast where like half the time I didn't even know what she was saying, or like I kind of had to play her line back in my head and say it to myself a couple times to figure out what the hell she said, or just like go on with the scene and sort of figure out later what she was saying, because every time she talks it's going like that. Oh my god, what happened over there? Like, slow down. Let me hear you speak, please. But yeah, there ends up being like this romance plot between them, and it could have been somewhat okay if one of them ended up dying, but neither of them end up dying. They just, you know, when you think Finn's gonna die, I'm like, oh good, He'll make a sacrifice, and we don't have to see him in the sequel. But no, he lives because Rose, of course, saves him, and then she kisses him and falls. And you think, okay, at least she's dead, because she was annoying. Oh, that'd be nice. Oh, but no, she's just injured, and they got a medical bay for her, and it's like, oh, shit. So we're going to see her again. Yeah, one of the disappointing things in this movie is none of the characters get killed off, except for Luke, even though he might not really get killed off. Like, at least give me that. If your characters are going to suck, can you at least kill them off so in the next movie we can bring in we have room for some more characters who might be good this time? Luke's death seemed totally pointless and unnecessary too, though, because he sacrificed himself essentially because everyone else in that movie is pretty damn stupid. Like, he was just buying them time because they didn't think to themselves, hey, you know, maybe instead of standing here and getting blown up by the Empire, maybe we should look around this base here for an exit. I mean, really, you had to see one of these, like, Arctic coyotes and go, maybe we should exit where they're leaving. You know, it seems like they're so focused on just, you know, filling the cast with people from totally different backgrounds that they don't really worry on filling the cast with interesting characters or characters who I can at least care about. I mean, a lot of it is, of course, the fault of the writing. They really gotta introduce some new writers or something, because the writing in terms of like dialogue itself and the overall plot was just bad, you know. Oh, and if any of you guys hated the Ewoks in Return of the Jedi, you are really not going to like this movie, because they fill in a lot of random creatures for really no reason except to try and get cheap laughs. You have these, I don't know what they are. They were like crosses between birds and like hamsters or Furbies or something, but you get all these like close-ups of these creatures just like yelling, and I guess initially it's cute where you're like, oh, they've got cute faces, but then you have like these close-ups during starship chases and things like that where they're flying around the Millennium Falcon and screaming, and it's like, yeah, okay, I guess the kids will like that, but this really takes the adults out of the movie. And of course, you know, they only added them in to sell some toys later. But, yeah, it got kind of annoying. The Ewoks are amazing compared to these guys. And anyways, I kind of like the Ewoks. I don't care what anyone says. The Ewoks are pretty adorable. These things were just irritating, though. Not as good as the Ewoks. It's hard to imagine the sequel to this can be any worse. It would be a pretty challenging feat to make the plot any more irrelevant than the plot for this movie was. But we'll see. We'll see. What I think Disney should do at this point to just salvage the Star Wars universe is make the very next movie the absolute last in terms of these characters, end their story, like kill them off or make some sort of resolution there, and then just focus on making side stories that have to do with Darth Vader, because the ending of Rogue One is really cool, and I like seeing Vader kick everyone's ass. So it would be nice if we had some sort of like Darth Vader anthology, you know, just follow him and his missions, and you know, where we get to see him commit heinous acts and tear some shit up, you know. That would be neat in my opinion. And the story of these guys here, it's just, it's really bad. So what do you think? If you saw The Last Jedi, do you agree with me, or do you think I'm totally off base here? I know when I gave my opinions of it, a lot of people were like, dude, you're stupid. The new one's so much better than the miniseries with Tim Curry. But, yeah, I disagree. So yeah, leave comments down below. Why am I even saying that? You all know how YouTube works. But yeah, this movie's dumb. The writing's dumb. The characters are dumb. A lot of dumb things about it. It's a dumb movie.